So you return, my friend. Welcome to the Spooktober Corky Butts episode. I call tonight's episode Games That Warped Me. Because ever since I was a young child, my dad was a real Hank Hill about me. There's something wrong with that boy. And this is before King of the Hill even existed, so perhaps a man ahead of his time. But I feel like I can attribute some of my warpedness back to, think back in my life into one pivotal moment where everything inside me changed and things could never be the same. Well, that would have to be Manhunter 2. The year is 1989, and I'm about 8 years old. And I believe it was my uncle owned the game, brought over Manhunter 2. And I guess before we go into the details about my experience with the game, I have to tell you a little bit about what the actual game was about, right? So, it was 1989. It was produced by Sierra, a real adventure game powerhouse of the era. And this game was kind of special because it had point-and-click adventure parts as well as action game parts. So as a child, it really appealed to me. These action sequences when, perhaps the comprehension of the overarching story was a bit beyond my ability to discern at that age. Because it has a particularly crazy story. It's a sequel. You're a manhunter. You are hunting a man on planet Earth after it has been subjugated by eyeball aliens. Yes, the orbs have taken over, and you are a manhunter, and humanity is forced to wear these brown robes of conformity as the rights are taken away by the eyeball people, the orbs. And I didn't really know much about the first game other than you're a guy who's chasing a guy. You manhunting, it's Manhunter and you off on that manhunt. And so the spaceship comes down and you are chasing him. There's two spaceships and yours crashes and his doesn't crash. So he escapes and you're trying to track this man down, whose name I believe is Phil Cook of all things, which kind of a weird coincidence. And so the story is your spaceship crash lands on another manhunter and you just assume his identity and start working his cases, assuming that this will somehow advance you towards your goal of tracking down this man. So you start looking into his cases, and it involves crazy rat men and the eyeballs and these rat men they're getting their fingers cut off and they're dying, and you later on learn that these rat men are mutated humans, and if you follow the plot line along, you find a doctor who's trying to cure them. And that leads into you discovering like a cult of resistance Asian fighters with burned dragons on their palms. And you use these clues of this conspiracy to discover that there's one doctor who's creating the mutants from the people for the orb's evil solution, even though it's never made clear to me why is it? They're just like, it's part of their evil plan, but there's no context to this evil plan other than they're just turning people into mutants, but it sounds like they're doing it for some really dire reason, which is just funny that it's never mentioned. All that aside, so eventually you go on to Alcatraz and you find the other all the trapped people that have been turned into mutants, and you free them, and they go around stomping out the eyeball men, stomping them out, and turning them to goo. and then you encounter somehow this all leads you to yo mans that you hunting, and now he flies away. He flies away on a spaceship, and that's the end. You hanging on the side of the spaceship. That's the end of the game. But it's not really the whole story, is it? No, the story of the game is really nothing compared to the story of the youth that experienced it at that age of 8. A real turning point, I think, for youth. I'm starting to outgrow perhaps what I consider more childy pursuits, the Sesame Street and the Disney gang, in favor for the Ninja Turtles, and I guess I've always liked Transformers and G.I. Joe, but more edgier stuff like the Ninja Turtles coming out, and I'm trying to be more adult, cool guy. And next thing you know, I'm wrapped up in Manhunter 2, a game with such graphic, horrible, violent imagery that any 8-year-old would stop dead in their tracks upon envisioning it. Especially after playing other games of the time, like maybe Starflight or Ultima 5, which has tiny little dudes with no real details. And in this game, it's all, you don't control a person. It's very, like you're just looking through the eyes of your character. And when you click on like a mauled body, it zooms up and just shows their faces with their eyes rolling back in their head and the blood coming out. And it always plays this like really music that scared me as a kid. It was the music when you saw something gory. But nowadays, it just kind of seems cheesy and fun. The gory imagery is these giant rat men. You'll find a rat man that has his finger chopped off and he's been maybe burned to death, and you can see pieces of his skull showing, and you have to remove the muzzle for him, just showing that even though he's a huge abomination to nature, like man has still muzzled him and killed him, and his fang is ripped out. And later you find the piles of the dead bodies where the monsters have killed people, and it shows their throats and it tells you they've been ripped out. You'll find at the doctor's office, you'll find dead bodies with severed limbs. You just see the bones sticking out. This is the first time I think I ever saw like a drawing of a severed arm. You know what I'm saying? Like, this is a new experience for 8-year-old Ty. He's seen a lot of things that he hasn't seen before. He's questioning them. For instance, the giant rat man with the half-eaten skull that looks like he drank a bottle of acid, even though it said it was a remedy supposed to cure him. All the rat men want to be cured, and you'll find them laying there dead on a dirty old bed in a rat's nest crackhead room with something scrawled on the wall, I will be man again. And then you find his eaten skull with the acid, and it was horrible. It scared me as a kid. I felt like I was just being bad by playing the game, even though I was allowed to play it. I feel like it was one of those things where maybe more vigilant parents would have stopped it. But I guess my dad didn't care because I wasn't smart enough to get through the game. It takes place over several days. You have to complete all your objectives in the first day before it moves on and the story will advance. And so I had to just kind of load his save games. I knew how to load save games, right? So I would load his save games and I would run around and just look at all the scenes and the imagery and stuff that I could find, as well as play some of the arcade segments, which, as I kind of mentioned earlier, my nose is itching, are sprinkled throughout the whole game, making it a unique point-and-click adventure with action elements, which I, as a kid, found quite fun because I knew I loved the gore and the scariness of it, but I couldn't figure out what was really happening. And the story is really loose. It's mostly contextual. You kind of have to just see scenes and piece together what's going on up until a certain point. And it's really weird. It's just more fun when all the eyeball men start getting mashed. Yeah. And I guess that's it. I don't have a lot more to say about it other than like this isn't like a review or even something saying that like you should play this game because it's such an amazing playthrough. Like if you're interested in it, you should. It's on my abandonware. You can look it up and get it going in DOSBox. You should certainly give it a try if you want to see some of these gory images for yourself. Some of the game is kind of, you know, ambiguous and stuff, so if you really wanted to play through it, I'd just say get a guide. Don't waste too much time trying to figure things out when you get stuck because you'll just have missed some pixel that you got to click on or something. But I think it was an interesting game and a really cool game for the time. Certainly a very adult material when a lot of the stuff was not quite as graphically gory. Yeah. So, yeah, thanks for tuning in. I hope you enjoyed my spooky costume motif. Oh, look, I got my pumpkin right here. Oh, man. Got my pumpkin. I always wanted to do a Halloween episode, you know, if I was ever going to really make a video. And it just kind of so happened that Halloween was the next month after my first video, so I got to make it right away, and that's lucky. So, yeah, I guess this is my final sign-off. Thanks for tuning in. I don't know what I'm going to do next time, but I'll figure it out along the way. And, you know.
Oh, God! The children are burning! Ah!